Hey everybody, and welcome to the B&H virtual event space. Today we're hosting, excuse me, photographer, author, co-founder of Grassroots Baseball, director, producer, Sony Artisan of Imagery, and B&H Event Space 2024 co-MVP, Jean Fruth. Welcome back, Jean.
Wow, now that's an intro. Thank you. Great to be back.
Great. Sorry, 2024 co-MVP Derek Fassbender couldn't be here today. To be honest, I was looking forward to watching you guys go back and forth like two peas in a pod.
Oh yeah, well, we'll be back together on Thursday, and I'm excited to be working with you, Fred. So
Oh, thank you.
yeah, so this is good.
Well, today we're talking about the documentary approach from book to film, namely your new documentary, See Her, Be Her. Congrats on the MLB Network premiere and right in the middle of the World Series, too.
Yeah, that worked out really well, and it was a goal, and it was pretty exciting. We spent 3 years working on that documentary with the goal after year one of could we get this seen during the 2024 postseason, Major League Baseball postseason. And so to have it actually happen and happen during the World Series, and then have the World Series be in two major markets in LA, with the Dodgers and the Yankees in New York, so having these big two TV markets, it couldn't have worked out better. And they always say sports photography is a lot of luck, and that definitely was the luck part
Yeah.
of having all of that come together. And so yeah, it was great, and we're really just getting started with the film. It was a great way to premiere it, and so now we're working on streaming platforms and film festivals and screenings. So it's fun to be here with a finished film and be able to talk about it and reflect upon it and continue to improve it.
Yeah, well, you know what they say about luck. Luck is preparation when preparation meets good timing. So yeah, having that film
Oh,
ready right at that point must have been felt great.
did and very stressful to get there because it absolutely had to happen. So we finished shooting in August, and Major League Baseball World Series is October. So having to edit 500 hours. We were
Oof.
editing ahead of time. We weren't not editing. So the editing was happening, but still it was a tremendous push to finish the film and deliver. And you have to deliver on time. Obviously, the World Series is not going to wait. So yeah, so it was all really exciting, and I like deadlines, so that's okay with me. So it's fine.
Well, well, let's not stand on ceremony. Let's take a look at the trailer for your documentary, shall we?
Let's do it. Thanks.
Awesome.
Kelsey Whitmer, a three-run.
The biggest stories at this tournament.
I see myself as the one doing that.
Sato, the greatest women's baseball pitcher. He's huge over there by Libya.
I think that I could be one of them.
Yeah, nice job by Sungyun Park.
Riela Velez, number.
We are good, we have talent, we are strong. I wish we had a team going to World Cup.
Good afternoon and welcome back to this WBSC Women's Baseball World Cup.
We're finally here. And then you have other countries coming in and they're trying to take a championship from you.
Existing in a men's baseball space.
The discrimination. Why did I have to go through that to play baseball?
You will never be in the MLB, face it. She's ruining baseball. What a joke.
If we don't have the World Cup event, what's the national team's gunning for? There's nothing else in women's baseball.
It seems like a real logical evolution is that there should be a league.
If that was just normalized, that women play baseball, we could just grow immensely.
なんだろう、サークル、そういう輪に聞こえてきます。そのサークルという大きなこの、まだちっちゃいけども、それを大きくしていく。これが世界中にこう広がっていくことを期待しています。
My favorite quote when I was young was, if you could see it, you could be it. When I see younger girls in the stands, they're coming here for me. I want to be what I didn't have.
All right. Well, I'm not going to pretend like it was the first time I've seen the trailer, but it's still thrilling to watch back. I mean, just from the 90 seconds alone, there's the celebration and passion for the game, character introduction, conflict, and then not not a resolution because, well, it's a trailer, but there's a lot of hope packed into that 1 minute and a half,
Yeah, yeah, it's just seeing it all together. Yeah, I'm really excited about that and seeing we call them sheroes, and they're the stories that we follow. And there's 7 of them, 7 baseball stars, and they're all at the pinnacle, of their game. And they come from, they come from the United States, Canada, Japan. I'm going to forget something because we're live. Puerto Rico, Cuba, South Korea, and Uganda. And they're just incredible women. And really, they're competitors and they want to win for themselves and win for their teams and their countries. But all of them share this common goal of wanting women's baseball to win. And that's our goal, is to want women's baseball to win and to shine a light. And they really are unsung heroes. And it just feels good to be able to give them a platform, give them visibility. That's our goal, is visibility for these women. And Grassroots Baseball is our not-for-profit, and we started with along Route 66, and we started with young kids and introducing the game of baseball to kids quite a few years ago when we started the not-for-profit. And after that initiative was over, we switched to these women, and it's been just so rewarding, and it's just very timely, and I don't know how much you follow women's sports, but women's sports is gaining, so much momentum in soccer and basketball has been tremendous. Tennis, of course, for many years. And now there's a professional women's hockey league.
Oh,
So
wow.
Yeah, and that just happened this past year. So they're going to be going on season 2. So it's just really great timing for these women, that people don't even know that women play baseball. So to be able to jump on the bandwagon now and give them visibility, the timing for the documentary is really, we feel, just right. And so do the women. So they're already, even just from that one premiere, opportunities are already starting to happen for them. And it just feels so good to be able to create for a cause and then already see things happening and a movement and seeing progress from just that one showing.
Yeah, I personally, I follow tennis, and they just had the year-end rankings for the WTA announced either yesterday or today, and I've been following and watching the tennis has always been about for the last decade and a half, it's always been about the big 3, Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. But now that 2 of them have retired, one is slowly walking into the sunset, it's opening it up for a lot of the young people. And I feel like it's also opening women's tennis has always been very popular, but I feel like it's opening the door to shine more of a spotlight in their direction as well. So it's been really cool to see.
Really cool to see when you see that next generation come up. And like you say, you see the classics, you see those guys as they start to fade into the sunset and they had their time. The new generation does it in a different way. And that's what makes it really cool. It's fun to see how they're going to approach it, how they do it, how they celebrate, and just how it's promoted. But I always say, go back and don't forget the heroes that came before you and whose shoulders you stand on. And one of them, of course, for women's tennis, there's nobody bigger than Billie Jean King, arguably the best woman baseball tennis player, greatest tennis player of all time. But even more impressive than her tennis is her advocacy, right, for gender equality, her advocacy for women's sports, her advocacy for social justice issues. Like, she did it first, and she fought that, it was men's was professional and women's was hobby or club. And she's like, no, we're going to get paid. Even if we get paid $1, we're going to get paid. And that's where it starts. And she's still fighting for this day. She became executive producer for our film. And she said, I want every girl and every woman to be able to dream, to play at the highest level. It should be available to them for every sport. So yeah, progress for sure. So thanks to Billie Jean King for tennis.
Yeah, It's cool seeing her take her success and her platform and not just turn it into a personal project, but something for the betterment of everyone else around her so that she can push forward this a not an agenda, but this a movement for women's sports in general.
Really is a movement. And yeah, I mean, she is not slowing down. And it is so genuine. As soon as we asked her, she jumped right in with a bunch of questions and she got right into it. She wanted to know, how can the progress be made? What are the possibilities? What are the next steps? I mean, she's not just in it to put her name on something and walk away. Like, she digs in and she gives it depth. And yeah, so it's having women like that. We need those women. And we had baseball stars, the men baseball stars, the Hall of Famers, who also want to see the women's game progress. And they lent, their time and interviews and were part of the documentary, and having guys like Cal Ripken Jr., one of the best baseball players of all time, like, say, hey, it's really important that the women get this platform and it's time for women to be able to have professional baseball. Also, goes a long way. And so it made the film special, like having, those voices and having them as part of the movement, as you called it.
Yeah. And speaking of Cal, I mean, not just an amazing athlete, but a class act. So it's not just the opinion of a sports guy, it's the opinion of someone that truly cares about what goes on around him and how he can affect the world.
Yeah. I mean, Ichiro Suzuki, he'll be the first Hall of Fame. He'll be the first Japanese player being inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, which will happen in 2025. And I hope he gets voted unanimously. He should. And it'll be a very exciting time for Japan to have their first Japanese player inducted into the Hall of Fame. But what he's doing for the women's game is tremendous. And he hosts a game for women high school all-stars, and he plays against them with a men's team. And he doesn't make it's not a joke, it's not funny. He plays hard, he trains, he plays hard against them, and he raises their level every year and expects them to come. And he hosts it at the Tokyo Dome and sells out the Tokyo Dome. So these high school girls are playing in front of a full stadium at the Tokyo Dome. And when you give platform, and he said, we can't expect this to happen naturally. It takes like people with like passion to come together and make it happen for them. We need to help them. We need to move it along. We need people to move, these women into a position so they have the opportunities. And so I really, appreciate that and everything he's done. And he really shows what an international game it is for women. There's 25 countries that have women's national baseball teams. And so that's why this documentary got out of control, because it had to be an international project. And so here I am making my first documentary. Well, I didn't know it was going to be a documentary at first. We knew, okay, we need to tell these stories. I was doing books and I was doing still photography, as you know, and it was, wow, to really do the job that we need to do and to give back the way we want to give back. This really needs to be video to tell the story properly and to give the visibility. So we started working in video and doing early interviews and just trying to figure out, like, okay, what's the style going to be? I knew I was going to be the woman interviewing all the women, a woman in baseball interviewing women in baseball. But that was a first for me, right? Doing these interviews. You do them all the time because you got event space. So you're like on it. So it took me a while to figure out what my style is and how I wanted to do it. And I did all kinds of things at the beginning. When I look at the early ones, I go, oh my God, what was I doing?
Growing pains.
Oh, it was, yeah. And then like some of it I wanted to use, and it was, how do I use that and put B-roll on it so nobody ever sees it, because we would try it. Well, I'm tough on myself, but you're practicing and you're figuring out, and early on I was also on camera, and then I realized, no, I don't want to be on camera, this document. And I didn't know it was going to be a documentary. I thought, would it be short stories? And we started to tell little short stories, and that's how the practice came in. And each one had a different style. There was no consistency in the beginning. It was, let's try this, and let's do this way, and let's try this one this way. But that helped us do our research, figure out the style, figure out what we wanted to do, certainly what we didn't want to do. And then it was starting to become clear, okay, this is an international project and this is a documentary. And then I started talking to a lot of friends of, do I do this? Do I really make this big move and jump in this big way? And I'm so glad I did. And there was certainly a crazy learning curve, but it's what's better than learning, right? So
true.
I definitely again, yeah.
So many sources of inspiration to pull this project together. Where did the initial idea come about?
Yeah, it was just seeing all the headlines when I was finishing my last project along Route 66. I shot my first all-girls baseball game. And I've shot plenty of a girl on a boys team, two girls on a team, but this was the first time girls were playing against girls. And it was magical seeing the difference. Because when a girl plays on an all-boys team, it's, oh, look, there's a girl playing. Oh, did you get pictures of the girl? Oh, she's going to be pitching next inning. There's a girl on that team. And so she's really isolated and very difficult for girls, sometimes great. And then this situation, it was, wow, this is cool. We need to know more about this. And then as the research happened, it was, okay, there's the history of women's baseball. Do we tell that story? Past, present, future, on the field, off the field. There's women's groundskeepers, there's executives, there's behind the scenes. Women in baseball and every really aspect of it, and progress being made and headlines being made. So narrowing it down and doing the research and then figuring out what countries have baseball, it all took time. And eventually you put it together and you start to create your storyline and your narrative. I got inspired, Neil Leifer, who is a Sony artisan as well, and one of the greatest, if not greatest, sports photographers to me ever. And he took that famous shot of Muhammad Ali standing over Liston, if you know it.
Yep.
Yeah. So Neil is a legend, and Neil made quite a few films. And so as I talked to him about this, he was the one who said, you absolutely can do this. You can take you know how to storytell, take your storytelling, take your style of how you take your stills, and take that style and you can transfer it into film. And just shoot it the same way, shoot your game action the same way, chase your beautiful light the same way. And he was right. It just took me quite a while to get my voice. I didn't have the confidence that Neil had. And in the beginning, because of not having that confidence, and I made a lot of mistakes early on, like letting things just happen as opposed to trusting my own voice. And I had a storyline, but I didn't have the right crew. Because I didn't know what the right crew was. There was so many things that I didn't know, like how to do it. And then it took me, after our two first shoots, I then realized, well, I had to absolutely get my voice and I had to get my arms around this and do things in a different way. And even the learning, as painful as it was at the time, I'm really happy that it happened because I learned so much, that I didn't know before. So, yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned not wanting to be in front of the camera. Just earlier today, another Sony artisan, Chris Orwig, we had Chris on, and we were talking about how there is that adage for photographers that I'm better behind the camera. I don't want to be in front of the camera. But being behind the camera and using your voice the way you eventually did when you took control and didn't let things happen, that's very much putting yourself on film without actually being on the other side of the camera. And it is not just telling the story, but the story as you see it. And that's hugely important and a big draw, especially hearing and knowing your personality, for people to see this. Where did the title "See Her, Be Her" come from?
I'm so excited about that title. And it's speaking of your voice, I had so many people in the beginning trying to talk me out of that. like even like when I first introduced it as a book, they're like, oh no, that's not a good title for a book. I don't even know why they didn't think it was. And now, I mean, everybody's like, yes, of course, see her, be her. And it actually came from one of my early interviews. I interviewed a woman who was a longtime woman umpire, and she was one of the first to umpire at a minor league baseball game. And she said, oh, Jean, we have a saying, if you can see it, you can be it. And I was like, wow, I really like that. And I kind of put that one in my pocket and hung on to it. And okay. And then somebody else said it to me, a manager of the USA team. She's like, oh, yeah, we always say, if you can see it, you can be it. And so I took, okay, see it, be it. Do we want see it, be it? And I was like, no, it's like see her, be her. And then it was like, okay, that's the title. And then as I started to work with crew and everybody's like, oh, is that our working title? I'm like, that's our working title. It's our final title. We are going all the way to the barn with this one. And absolutely, I love it. And it's so true to, to the project. And so, yeah, I'm really happy with it.
That the aspect of, having young female athletes see what is possible for them, or the effort that they can put into, expanding what they're passionate about is one thing. Looking at it from the other side, I feel like the title, it's see her and be her in a be empathetic to what, the trials and tribulations that they have to go through in order to do the thing that they love, and be empathetic and support young female athletes if they want to follow through on whatever sport they want. So I think the title, if anyone was telling you not to do it, I'm glad you did it, because I think it speaks to a wider audience that way.
It really does. It's true, right? Our hope is that See Her Be It not only empowers women, right, to achieve the greatness, but for someone watching, right, to realize that if they can see her, they could also one day dream to be her, right? You can't, if you can't see it, you can't be it. But then there is the other way. Yeah, I mean, even when we had our screenings and we have young girls and they're looking and they're watching Kelsey Whitmore talk about the social media, like she got attacked on social media, and social media can be really mean. And her reading her social media, like the mean things that people said, like really hurtful things. And she screenshotted those and she used it as her home screen on her phone. And she would read them. And instead of letting them crush her, she used it to fuel her.
Yeah.
And for young girls to see that, and how many young girls now, get affected by social media? Probably so many, I mean, even as old people get our feelings hurt by social media, and it's like, wait a minute, I got to be past this by now, huh? But so you can only imagine, so like you say, the adversity they face, and when they know there's nothing better than knowing, like, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who's gone through this. There's so many out there just like me.
So the companion book that's part of your grassroots baseball series, what was the process for doing both? I mean, you're already wearing one hat as the photographer, but you're also quote unquote sitting in the director's chair, and then you're looking over your own shoulder as a producer too. How did you tackle all of that?
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, so many things didn't go as well as I was hoping. But if I told you that, everybody'd say, "Oh yeah, no problem for her. She could shoot a book, and make her first film." And it was a piece of cake, and it was just so far from that. It was so difficult, and because I was also struggling with having my voice and trying to be a first-time director, trying to get my storyline heard, and it was not being heard. I was not going in the direction that I wanted it to go. So the plan for shooting a book and a film, interviewing, directing, shooting stills, producing, and managing a crew was just such a crazy learning curve. And as a still photographer, and people who, I mean, we have like so many still photographers, right, that are probably in this audience. you're used to being a lone wolf, especially sports photographers, right? I decide when, where, how, when, what, all of it. No one hands me a menu at 8 a.m. and says, okay, this is what's going to be for lunch, and you pick your food now and do a checklist of what you're going to have. When I'm hungry, I take out my power bar and eat it when I want to eat it. Like it's just me and my camera bag and wherever I want to go. And filmmaking couldn't be more right the opposite. It's always this team effort. Having the right team is so essential in having success in creating your documentary. And for me, creating a documentary and a book, having the right team, right? Learning what team I needed. And like I said, it was a rough one because of my lack of experience. So it took me a while to trust myself and get the story I needed to tell and to course correct. So then I strived to foster like a creative, inclusive, and smaller crew, which we'll get to. But in the beginning, it was, how do I do this? I'm doing all these interviews. And what I did do well in the beginning is I did get all the interviews done, and I had a style for the interviews. And I had a nice wide berth of questions, which really served me well later, because as the story unfolded, and even though you have a storyline, of course, it's a documentary, so it moves and you have to be flexible to where that story is going to go. So the wider your questions are, the better your interviews are, and the more you can go to them and be able to create the story you need to create. But I'd go back from those shoots and come back from a maybe 10-day shoot and be very disappointed with the stills that I had for the book. And it was, wow, the book is really suffering. I'm not making the pictures. And it was because there was too many things. So I had to go back. And then and you'll meet Martin next Thursday. He's going to be joining us. And that's when we really got our crew together. And I was able to then create a plan with Martin of how we were going to shoot. There was so much planning before anything happened. And that's really the key to it anyway. It's always the key to my still photography is a plan. And really, it's the same thing. Now it's just creating a more detailed plan for both so that when it happens, okay, we can be filming and I can be shooting stills simultaneously. And then when it was working, it felt so good to then finally have the success. And the book, I wanted to mirror the film. So anybody who sees the film and they get the book, they'll feel this companion feeling throughout, with the essays, with the pictures, with the light, and chasing the pretty light and shooting in the same way and same kind of style. So, is it perfect? Certainly not. But it feels really good with the outcome and how it turned out, and tremendous to learn how to do all of that and put those two skill sets together and have this journey.
It seems like during the shoot, during production, the path or the direction of the narrative of the film made itself apparent. But from the idea to the first time that you hit the shutter, either on the video camera or the stills camera, what type of research was involved in, getting prepared to do this?
Yeah, I mean, we reached out to, we had writers, sports journalists who we contacted in 25 countries and figured out who the top female stars were in each of those countries. And then, okay, we had to narrow it down. We can't tell 25 stories. We really had no business telling 7 stories, but we did. But you still have to create an arc, right? A storyline and some sort of, you have to figure out what your treatment's going to be, the themes, the tone, the key elements. And we really had 2 arcs where we were following. It was really 3 women that were more of our main arc, and the World Baseball Cup, the Women's World Cup. And that's interesting too, because we're creating something. So we have these 6 women who are all participating in the World Cup. And we started in the semifinals, and all 6 countries were there. But there was 12 countries that were playing. I mean, we had the possibility that all 6 of them lost. And then we would have been really in trouble, because then our main heroes wouldn't have been playing in the World Cup. So there was risks to follow, and then we'd still have to follow the story, but we would have had to tell a different story. 3 got eliminated and 3 main kept. And then in the finals, these 3 women from Canada, Japan, and the USA, they all battled. There was 6 countries total, but we had three women in the race. And so they all battled for the World Cup, and that's how, like, one of the arcs that it follows. And so it's just figuring all of that. And then, of course, with a documentary, you have to stay flexible, right? Because it evolves during production. You learn more, and real life events, unfold. Like our woman from Canada, she's a wildland firefighter. And right before she got to the World Cup, she fell in a fire pit and burned her hand and her arm. And so now she's not going to play like she'd normally play. Well, that's a different story to tell, isn't it? That's adversity. That's a different adversity. So you have to be flexible enough. It's like, oh no, that's not in my storyline. So we're going to keep that out. So you have to move, and then when you have the right crew, which then at that point we certainly did, then it's so easy, not easy, but you're able to be flexible and you're able to tell the story as it unfolds. So going back to the planning, right? It's really just deciding who you're going to be, what your interviews are going to look like. And just all the pre-production, planning that kind of goes into it.
Did you have an idea how the pre-production process went ahead, since this was your first time, or were you learning on the fly? Were there any mentors that helped you get the process off the ground?
It was, yeah, like the first 2 shoots, it was a bloated situation because we were working with people who were more in the scripted space. And that's where kind of the adjustment needed to happen, because I then learned really the difference between scripted, and unscripted. And what we needed was someone who understood the documentary space. So we had this too bloated of a crew, too much gear, too much everything, not being able to be nimble, and then with me not having my voice, not telling the story. So then I did get advice. I got advice a little bit later. It would have been good to get that advice a little earlier. But when I made the shift, we shifted to a smaller crew, and someone who understands documentaries, and you have to have like this mind of wanting to tell the story, and someone who has passion for the story. I'm not expecting to have the passion like I do, but luckily for me, I did find it, and we worked together in this tremendous way. So then the planning is different. What gear we need becomes very clear. So the gear, the interviews we want to get, everything is planned, and it flows so much better. And the more preparation, the more smooth the shoots go.
When did a Hall of Fame president Jeff Idelson become involved? Was early on, or?
Oh yeah, so Jeff and I are partners in grassroots baseball. So back in 2018 is when we formed our nonprofit, Grassroots Baseball, together. So Jeff was always behind the scenes.
Okay.
Jeff has the passion like no other. But obviously filmmaking is certainly something that wasn't on Jeff's resume as the president of the Baseball Hall of Fame. But his skill set that he brings and the passion for the game is tremendous. So he was behind the scenes producer and tremendous to the process, not on the ground as far as, the creative part, but certainly the behind the scenes part. And there's so much that you need to get done, setting up the interviews, getting all the permissions, the permissions of
international even.
International is unbelievable. And then, of course, you need translation for all of that, and on location permissions, and just everything that's involved. And the more organized you are before you hit the ground, the better. And, thanks to Jeff, we were incredibly organized once we hit the ground. So we didn't, then you avoid so much of that, and you can just spend the time with what you want to do, and is creating.
So creating the storyline, not just of the production itself, but so the first steps, like writing the treatment for the film. How was that process? Was that something you were familiar with right off the bat? You needed to be coached up a little bit?
I did research on it, and again, went back to, spend some time with Neil and some others. Like, But I understood I'm a storyboard person anyway by nature. I mean, if I'm going to a Little League game, I seriously have a plan. And it may sound like overkill, but I really believe that the more you have a plan and the more you know what you want to capture, how you want to capture it, the more success that you have. So it's pretty formulaic for me. And I just got done teaching a class this weekend. And if they learned anything, those students walked away with, yeah, let's have a plan. I mean, that may not be everybody's style, but for me, I always have a plan. When I was shooting the World Series 2 weeks ago, like I knew what my celebration shot was going to be, from what angle, and exactly where I was going to be standing, truly 2 days before it happened. Like I already knew, and I could picture it in my mind. Now, of course, maybe it wasn't going to go that way, but I had the vision of Freddie Freeman holding up his hands and exactly what angle I was going to shoot that from. And I was like, okay, this is going to probably happen here. Like, I'm going to do that. All right, here it goes. And then when I'm done shooting that, then I'm going to go to this crowd, and then I'm going to go to this. And I set it in my mind a million, plan, 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 plan. And so the storyline is kind of the same thing, but obviously in a bigger way. So I knew the themes, I knew the tone, I knew how we wanted to chase the light. And I understood, after making all of those different interviews and different styles, it was okay. Now for a documentary, obviously you want to have the consistency. So it was, I want the consistency of how that's going to be, and then it's getting, like I said, it's the right team, because you don't get, like, as a still photographer, you don't get to do it by yourself. So you really have to have the right crew and everybody wanting to execute in that same way. So, and the game action was also fun for me, because even in the beginning, my game action wasn't what I wanted it to be. And then it was, wait a minute, how do I not, know how to make this happen for game action? So then, we got in our groove, and by the time we were in the semifinals and finals, we were shooting game action in such a beautiful way. And
Nice.
It was so exciting, because then you bring joy to the project. You're excited. You still have problems, there's still issues, there always is, but you solve them, and you're excited to solve them because things are going well.
This was the part of our conversation that I'm glad I'm here and not Derek when talking about the World Series. So
yes. Yeah, it was not good.
All our love to you and Derek.
Sorry, Derek. Yeah.
It's okay. There's next year. They still look good.
Game 5, Derek. Game 5. I don't know what to say.
Right. So let's move on to the meat and potatoes of it. It's budgeting, the fundraising for this project. How did that work out for you?
Yeah, and it's the budget that, when we, again, first starting and then not realizing, going in that wrong direction, we ended up at the beginning going way over budget and then having to correct as well. It all just happened at the beginning, but luckily it happened early enough and soon enough that we were able to correct and get us on track. And I think it's great to talk about that, to talk about correcting, and because things don't go smoothly and you learn more from mistakes, especially with things like that, because when they sting, you really learn. So, and because we're a not-for-profit, we were doing fundraising for the project, and the goal has always been the same, is to create visibility for these women. And we had some people, some really philanthropic people who were on board with us, who helped make it happen. And so, and we're still working on that, working on our budget and stuff. That process is still not over. But what you do have to know is also you have to plan that it has to be taken all the way to completion. So when you have your budget and you're doing your fundraising and you're figuring all that out, you also have to figure out how you get it all the way to completing your film. So all of that was also a learning process for us, and we got there, and I'll be better at the next one.
You mentioned having too much gear, more gear than you needed. It sounds a lot like the first few shoots, the first few times getting together was sort of preseason, and then it was time to get the team roster down.
Look at you. Look at you. We don't need Derek. No, we do need Derek. Derek, you didn't hear
Derek,
that.
we need Derek. there's a love of baseball that can't be replicated with when you two talk. So yes, we do need Derek. But I do like sports, and I do get cutting down the roster to fit. How were there any particular reasons that you would choose one piece of gear over another, or?
Oh, absolutely. And, when we talk to Martin, the thing is, like I said, with the bloated crew, but when very lucky, we did find the crew, and it was Martin Bertiom, who you'll meet next week. And when we came together, I mean, he did share the passion like I did for telling the story. And he brought it with him an amazing skill set. And so that not only could we succeed in doing what we wanted to do, but we brought joy into the project. We had this amazing journey, and we crafted a powerful, engaging documentary that resonates, with our audience that we wanted to capture. And when you have someone who has a skill set like him, then you need small crew, big results is what we'll talk about next week. But we were able to, and the reason you don't want to go in with everything so big, with a bunch of tripods and like small, keep it like nimble, moving. And now all of a sudden we've got way too much stuff. And you're trying to, a documentary, especially something like this, we're going into people's homes. And you want to keep it intimate, and you want to not have all this stuff in between. Sure, the interviews, the formal interviews, that's a different situation. You want that to be beautiful. But now the rest of it, this is not a documentary of talking heads. So all this verite needs to be on the fly, and you need to be able to move and adjust. And we went into people's homes, and who we thought we were going to be talking to and getting our information from, and who was going to go changed. And it's not the grandmother that's talking, it's the grandfather. And you have to be able to move and shift, and you're in their homes, and you don't want to be overwhelming and imposing. You want to be small and less intimidating, so people feel free to then just relax. And ideally, you're almost a fly on the wall, then disappearing. They're so used to you being there that they're not even there. And so if you have a little FX3, it's very small. It's, and you're hand holding it, or, you've got something just really nice and small, being able to move, being out of the way, being respectful. And you get a lot more intimacy, and you get people to open up and share with you, right? So because it's about the story story has to lead the process. And if it's too much, you're going to miss the story.
Yeah, if you're in imposition, then it's not necessarily the story of what you're trying to capture. It's the story of how they're reacting to you being there, kind of, and that the faces and the worry or the concern that they're putting on. You traveled to a lot of places. Obviously, it's the 7 countries. How did getting through the 500 hours of footage, and how many interviews did you do, and what was the process for pushing through so much content?
7 countries, 3 continents, 4 languages. I should have thought about that too. It was like, oh yeah, we have to now have translation for 3 of these languages. And but it had to be told, it had to be done. And 123 interviews, something like that, 26 interviews, something like that, a lot of interviews. So, but you have to stick with your storyline, and that's the editing process. And it's the same, it's interesting, right? Because I was editing for a book and editing for a documentary, and the book has to tell the story. If the picture is not helping tell the story, well, you only have so many pages. You can't afford to keep that in there. That has to go. Only the best can be in there, and you're only as good as your weakest picture. So you want to be proud. When I hand you this book, I want to be proud of every single picture that's in it. And so if you're not sure, it goes, and and that's editing, right? That's strong editing. And it's hard to let go. I mean, there's so much good footage, and you want to tell such a big story for each one of these women, but you have to stick to the storyline, and you only have 150 minutes, which is a lot of minutes. But if you're telling the story of 7 women, you've got to get to your storyline. You got to go through and so only the best can stay. And we had great editors. We had a great editing team. And then it also goes back to Martin again, because having someone who has a skill set who also knows how to edit, so many times you're making a film and then the DP is gone by the time you're editing. And that's a shame because the DP knows where everything is and he knows or she knows the story. So there was Martin and I, we know the story better than anybody. So having us as the editors is only going to make it better because we're closest to it. It's also hard when you're close to it because you don't want to let go of your babies because you work so hard for this and you captured this. So, oh my gosh, this is such a great story. And as great of a story as it is, if it's not fitting into the storyline, it's got to go. So editing it's fun. And certainly video is a beast. 500 hours is no joke to edit down to a film. But it's also not lost footage too, because we're using that footage. We're making little mini videos for social, and we can do all kinds of things. We have a lot of great footage. It's not like it's just on the cutting room floor.
I find when someone asks me to do a task at work, just whatever random task, if they're outside of it too far, where it's just a pure I want you to do a thing, trying to do that thing for them can become kind of abstract. Whereas the managers or the directors that have done it, that have played the part, that have been in the trenches, when they ask you for something, they can be very like instructive almost with their question. Now that you've gone through this process once, do you find, you said you loved learning, do you find that the things that you've learned are going to help you tackle the next type of project that you do like this?
Oh, tremendous. Oh, so much so. It's just the learning process, though painful and very steep, because I was learning on a big stage, right? It's, okay, I'm learning how to do this and making this documentary that's with a timeline and all of it, though I don't regret a single moment of it. Even the mistakes, I don't regret any of them because it was all part of the learning. And I wouldn't be able to take this skill set with me to the next one that I have now. I'll make a new set of mistakes for sure. There's plenty more to be made, and there's so much that I don't know. But I do know that I will work always with, it's the crew is everything, that it is absolutely a team effort. The success is about the team. It's being able to have the confidence, to have the voice, but finding the folks that around you who are going to really, I guess, help you strive to foster this creative, inclusive environment that then you can thrive. That's going to make your documentary or your whatever your project is a success.
And that's the primary thing you and Martin will be talking about on Thursday, getting that team together, how to manage them, right?
Yeah, not only that, but we would do our like before every shoot, we would have our gear list check. And I love I'm big on preparation and he's massive on preparation. So it's like, here's my gear list. Here's what, and we, I had some gear, he had some gear we had to borrow, and it was like, where is the gear? Who has it? And then all of it, right? Like, it's not just, it's the gear, it's the memory. How are we offloading? What's the plan for that? Who's going to offload what? Who's taking what copies back? How is it getting to the editors so we can immediately get going? Because we were editing as we were going. So we're like shooting, putting dailies up, getting it right there. It was like a machine. And so like the process of all of that, and then the distribution of the gear, like keeping it organized, just all of it, and being able to stay small, and what he was able to do with and it's interesting. You can do sound in a million ways, and it's so great that he has a background where, when we went to Uganda, we did bring somebody for sound, but in many places, it was just us. And because of his skill set, we were able to do that and not sacrifice quality.
Yeah, and having a really strong logistics style person on your team can not only, set up the plan or, be ready in pre-production, but also be having someone like that must be huge for when things go a little south. Like when things start, when, other parts of the team or the lead gets flustered or things are lost or anything, the one cool head must have been huge having him around.
Oh, huge. Oh, and going right into problem solving mode. And both of us knowing because we were doing this in such a small way, and so much is riding on, you also have to say it's okay when something goes wrong and you don't lose it. Okay, we didn't capture that perfectly. Okay, that went wrong. We're two people. We're in South Korea. We're flying with a baseball player in an airplane, and we're trying to capture interviews, and we're doing a million things with this small crew, like with just us, nobody else. And so yeah, when things go wrong, it's okay. Like we just have to adjust, be part of the solution, be part of the problem, and don't lose it. It'll work. It's gonna work out, and it does. It does when you have somebody, when you have a head like that who can figure it out and doesn't go into panic mode, and then one person keeps the other person calm. So if one person's like having a bad day, you're supposed to help. So yeah, what an amazing journey when you meld like that and you draw out the best in the other person.
I mean, considering the relationships that you've built with all the players and the teams that you've shot over the years, going into these new environments and non-English speaking countries, younger players, did you feel the same sort of that welcoming reception? Were they standoffish about the project? Did you find that to be similar to what you're used to?
I like that. Yeah, it's a great question. It's really kind of the same thing whether you're walking onto a major league ballpark or, many times I'm just going to a new country shooting, so I'm pretty used to just going to places where I don't speak the language and figuring out how to communicate. And it really is connecting and building trust very quickly, right? Because you don't have a lot of time. And so it's ideally you're letting them know you're coming ahead of time. In this case, they all knew we were coming. They know our mission is pure. We're not there to take, we're there to give. And I always feel that way. Like I'll go to Cuba in January, I'm shooting, and I never look at it. I feel like that country gives me such beautiful pictures, right? Always the people, just everything, the beauty. I don't want to just go there and take. I want to give too, however I can give back. And we did that with our documentary too. When we went to Cuba, we asked everybody, what do you need? Like what, they need medicine, somebody needed a cell phone, they need this. We try to help and be part of their community and see what they need. And we really care about these people. We have lifelong friends now, like what they're going through is real. So yeah, it's not like just to go in and take. I'm not looking to, I want to take my pictures and go and thank you. It's I'm a part of this now and I want to, be helpful, and they know we're there to raise their visibility, to tell their stories. So the welcome that we had and that we still have and the connection that we still, that we have is great. So yeah, we're heading to Cuba and we're going to bring the film to them and sit next to them in their living room and watch it together. Yeah, so it'll be very sweet.
Nice. It's cool to hear that you still have those connections with the people that you're helping, and being able to like catch up with them and see them flourish, or continue to try to send help.
Yeah. Whatever it is that they're going through, life is not easy in a lot of those places. And just all the connections that I have in Uganda is, social media. That's the good side of social media. Be able to stay in touch with these women in Uganda and, hear about like what's happening for them. And, and I hope I get to go back there really soon too. And But yeah, no, I'm committed. It's not just, yeah, thank you, bye, have a nice rest of your life. No, I'm true to it. Martin's true to it. We have lifelong friends. Certainly Jeff, he's in touch with all of them, and it's a great part of the journey.
Nice. All right. Well, we're getting to that time. I just wanted to say thanks so much for having me on your show.
Wait, is that how that works? I thought you had.
Well, when Derek gets back, then we'll flip the tables around again. But yeah, it was great. I've been in the background. I'm on the event space team. I've gotten the chance to watch you talk to Derek and join with Ira and with your publishing partner last time. And having some of the questions, I would literally type them into the chat and hopefully Derek would get to them himself. But it was nice being able to talk to you directly this time around.
Yeah, I really like this. I hope we get a chance to do this again. Yeah, thank you.
Considering Martin's as cool-headed and logistics oriented as you say, I might just pop my head in on Thursday just for like a nice job.
He's a pretty incredible guy, and we'll talk about filming, capturing the footage, the storytelling that we did together, our sound and lighting. We'll get into the gear too, because it's like that'll be great, and then just the consistency that we went for the documentary. So we'll get into the nuts and bolts next week when he's with us.
Cool. All right. Hey guys, that's all we've got time for today, but this is not the end. Jean will be joining us again this Thursday. It's this Thursday, right?
It is. Yeah.
It is this Thursday to take a deeper dive, just as she mentioned, for the See Her, Be Her project. Please be sure to catch this replay and more on our BH Event Space YouTube. Jean, any closing thoughts before you come back again?
Oh, no. Just looking forward to next week. And if anybody has questions, if there's a way for them to get it for next week, just send them my way. Even if you email me or social media, find me. Cool. I'm happy to answer them. It'll be my pleasure.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Sony, for putting us together again. Everybody, thank you for watching. This has been another edition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. Have a great day.